So the last segment of the day is called the dating game. And one of the things that I've found over the years, and I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, and I know that because one of the lines in our sales letter talks about how dating seems like a labyrinth, like there are 1,000 ways to get it wrong and only one way to get it right. And that's how dating felt for me for years. So in this segment, all I want to do is give you an overview of the dating game from 3 different layers. The first layer is the obsession story itself, the 4 different phases that she's going to go through that sort of mirror the heroine in the Literotica books. So that's the first phase or layer that we'll talk about. The next one is investment. So investment is a real key concept. Jason talked about it a little bit earlier. You've probably heard me mentioning it on and off. But basically, the question is, how invested in you is a woman? So I'm going to show you the different levels of investment she can have. And then the third phase is what's called the checkpoints. So the checkpoints is how we commonly refer to dating. It's going to be very, obvious stuff. When you meet her, when you get her number, first kiss, all that. And we're not going to really dwell on those, but I want to show you guys how those 3 things align. Bless you. How those 3 things align. The obsession story, the investment ladder, and the checkpoints. So that when you are on the second date, you're like, okay, here's where we are in the obsession story. Here's probably what she's experiencing right now in terms of her feelings for me. And here are the emotions, and here's how invested she is in me. And that's going to give you the flexibility to react and manage the situation and just have a little bit of strength in yourself. One of the things that I think is so pivotal in being great with women, Jason talked about indifference. And it was funny when I heard him talk about that, excuse me, because when I've liked a girl, I've never been indifferent. I know it. I'm like, shit, I like this girl. I'm in trouble. And I try not to speak of my personal life too much, but just to borrow a quick anecdote from my current relationship. I remember we'd been on 2 dates, and there had been 1 kiss on each date, a small one. Actually, there had been a kiss on the first date, and then a kiss when we saw each other on the West Side Highway. And I was nervous. I was like, okay, does she like me? Does she not like me? And I remember I was at the Mets game with my buddies, and it's kind of a close game, which is, I think, strange for the Mets. But I was at the Mets game. It was a close game, and I was inviting her to a party later that evening. And I sent her the text message. And we'd been texting back and forth a fair amount. I had a pretty good indication that she liked me, but we had been texting back and forth. And I asked her to go to the party. Excuse me. And I didn't hear back for quite a while, maybe 40 minutes or so. And I know we've all been there. That was one of the longest 40 minutes of my life for that year period. So I was like, is she gonna respond? Is she gonna respond? And I was like, I just was not paying attention to the game. I'm kind of in my head. And I realized something in that moment. And this is why I talked about earlier giving the gift of thrills to someone. Because I realized this is amazing that I feel this way right now. I don't have control over my emotions in this moment. Maybe, if I could go to a psychologist and ask for a Xanax prescription and pop one, then I could calm down a little bit. But I don't have control of my emotions in this moment, and I am focused on her. What should I do about this right now? And I realized the only thing I could do in that moment was just enjoy the fact that I felt this way about this girl. And that wherever it went from here, I'm not indifferent to her. I care. I care about this outcome. And if we don't continue to date, I'm not going to go out and bang 20 other girls. I'm going to mourn the loss, briefly, but I will. And if we do continue to date, amazing. That tells me something. That tells me that these feelings that I'm feeling, this fear, this anxiety, is she going to write me back? These emotions that don't feel great, that kind of capture us and take us away from everything else. I kind of don't want them to be there, but god damn, I'm glad that they're there. That says something about me, it says something about this girl. That's really magical. So while we're going to understand and dissect the dating game, I just wanted to share that with you guys because we often get caught up in those zones, and sometimes those zones can last for weeks or months. And if you're dwelling on a girl for weeks or months, then you're probably in the friend zone and you need to, do some other stuff, which we'll talk about tomorrow. But if you feel that way about a girl, it's not a bad thing. Just want to point that out. So with that in mind, let's jump into the obsession story. We've talked about the obsession-worthy man. As I broke down the obsession story in the Literotica books, it was basically 4 phases. Impression, inspection, intimacy, and love. So let's review those again. Impression, inspection, intimacy, and love. So impression is from meeting her to getting her number. You've made an impression, you got her number. Inspection is from texting. It used to be phone calls, right? But these days, from texting to sex. Intimacy is from sex to relationship. And then in love is from relationship and onwards. As Evan and I were talking about this, we like the metaphor resume, interview, internship, job. Something like that. So I'm just going to give you a very high-level overview of what we're going to be learning in each of these phases, because tomorrow, the whole day is going to be talking about what to do in each phase. So right now, this is just the table of contents for what we're going to learn tomorrow. That's an open loop, by the way. So, as I said, impression is from when you meet her to when she's decided she wants to see you more. That's when you know impression is over. And that's when you can ask for her phone number. One of the things Nick talked about is like, dude, if you don't ask for her phone number, she's not just going to offer it to you. Now, impression can take an instant. You saw earlier when I was demonstrating with Alex, I find you very attractive, give me your number, right? In that moment, I can make an impression, or I can take 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes in a deep conversation. But the key point of impression, here's how you know that you're moving beyond her. Here's what it should feel like to her, is you are occupying space in her mind. If you've made the right impression, then at the end of this phase, what you have done is you are occupying space in her mind. And that's the key part of the obsession story, is the heroine meets this guy, and she's kind of been going about her life, and her life is fine, maybe a little mundane, but she meets this one guy, and this one guy stands out and just occupies space in her mind. And that's what you want to do with your first impression. So the goal of this phase, what is the goal? Is to just get her to start opening up about her life a little bit. Now you can, again, I showed you can get a number. She didn't open up about her life at all. But if it's at that first conversation, maybe at a party, maybe at a bar, maybe through friends, if you can, you're going to get her to open up about her life a little bit. So what are we going to cover tomorrow in the impression phase? We've already given you a fair number of examples today, but here's what we're going to specifically cover tomorrow is how to make an impression on her before you even meet her, before you even open your mouth. How to talk to her if you're introduced to her, how to actually do the mechanics of it. How to approach her. We showed you a fair number of examples of approaching today. Nick is going to come back tomorrow and talk all about approaching girls, because I don't know anybody who's better at it. Maybe Jason, but probably not. I don't know. I'd put them toe-to-toe. Conversation stuff. So what do you actually say to a girl to make that strong impression on her? How to get her to approach you. This is something that I became quite good at, and it's not actually that hard. And finally, resetting an impression. So it's funny, one of the things that that's in our sales letter is a simple but or subtle but sneaky technique that you can use to turn a girl's impression around if she's put you in the friend zone. And then I'm like, warning, girls can be very, very sexually aggressive if they want to prove themselves to you. I forgot to include that last time in the product. And you wouldn't believe how many guys write in and are like, yo, I bought the product for that specific technique. I'm like, oh, shit. So I email it to them, but it's not in version 1 of the product. So this is what, I just can't wait to tell you guys about this, because it's really funny how it works, and it works really well. So we're going to show you how to reset an impression if you're in the friend zone. So that's impression, right? And that's what we're going to learn tomorrow. Stage 2 as I said, is inspection. This is where, and to answer your question from earlier, if impression is from where you meet her to when she decides she wants to see you more, inspection is where boyfriend value starts to express itself. This is where all those things that we talked about in the last segment really start to come out. It's the dating process. And the question that she's going through in this process is, am I going to give myself to this man? Now, what we want to flip it to is, will this man let me give myself to him? And of course, there's going to be some mutual inspection. We'd love it if we always had the power and always had the control. I'm going to give you guys the tools to have as much control as I can. But there will be some women who will always, they're beautiful, they're smart, they're intelligent. Maybe they're none of those things, but they just still manage to maintain their power. So the goal of this phase, you know this phase is over when you've entered a sexual relationship. And that's sort of a gross generalization, right? Because there are girls who you'll go out and you'll have sex with that night, and you're not in the inspection stage yet because you just met her and you took them home. But if you're following a normal dating protocol, right? Meet her, couple dates, and then you end up having sex. This phase ends when the sexual relationship really begins. What we're going to teach you tomorrow, I'm going to teach you my very best and most important texting techniques. So texting is something that hangs up a lot of guys. We've got a whole program about it. I know some of you guys have seen it, how to text her. But I'm going to teach you the very best stuff from that course. I'm also going to give you step-by-step dates. So first date, second date, third date. These are the things to do. I'm going to have another wonderful woman in here to demonstrate dating conversations and how to, talk to her, how to grab her hand when you're walking down the street, stuff like that. How to create conversation chemistry and romance, and then how to create amazing sexual excitement. We've given you a preview of all this stuff today. I'm going to show you how and when to apply it tomorrow. And as I mentioned, we'll go from she's inspecting me to at least parity, where you guys are expecting each other, or possibly the reverse, where you're inspecting her. So that's the inspection phase. The third phase is intimacy. Intimacy is the 2 to 6 week period where you're sleeping with the girl, but you don't have a label on the relationship yet. So the way I like to think of this phase is you're giving her space, but at the same time, you're lighting up her life. So you're not overwhelming her, but every time she sees you, she feels happy, she feels elated, she feels excited. And the goal of this phase is an emotional relationship. So if the goal of the last phase, the goal of inspection, is to get to a sexual relationship with her, the goal of the intimacy phase is to have an emotional relationship with her. One where she opens her heart to you. When we were working through this program, Evan and I, we were really trying to figure out, okay, what's the configuration? How do we pull all these concepts together? And we came up with a slightly, offensive is the wrong word, but slightly crude way to describe the three phases. In impression, she opens her phone book to you. In inspection, she opens her legs to you. And in intimacy, she opens her heart to you. So intimacy ends, the phase ends, and you know you've gone past the intimacy phase when she trusts in your masculine strength and feels like the woman who she always wanted to be with the man who she's dating. I'll say that one more time. She trusts in your masculine strength. All those things that we showed, those 6 traits that we showed in the beginning of the course. She trusts that is real. She's like, he is a challenging man. He is mysterious, but he's opened up to me. He's opened his heart to me. He is dominant. He didn't just come pick up on me in a bar. I see how he interacts with other guys. I see how he handles his work situation. He is a dominant motherfucker. So she learns to trust in your masculine strength at the end of this phase. And she feels like the woman she always wanted to be in your eyes. So what you'll learn in this phase, and this is much shorter, but I'll give you more step-by-step dates. I'll tell you how to keep her hooked without pushing her away. There's always that tension. I'm sure this has happened for some of you guys. You sleep with the girl once or twice, and you're like, oh, great, it's on, it's amazing. And then somehow she just fizzles into thin air. So I'll show you how to not have that happen. Finally, we'll talk about how to become official, how to have the talk. So most of what we'll be covering tomorrow is going to be impression and inspection. Those are the bulk of it. Intimacy is going to be like just more of the same, but with slightly different tactics. And the final phase is in love. So that's when you're enjoying the love of your life. This is where you've given in, and so has she. You're going to start to deal with new challenges at this phase. You're dealing with jealousy, you're dealing with trust, you're dealing with ongoing excitement, keeping the relationship spicy, and everything else that comes with relationships. And frankly, that's not the focus of this program. We're going to leave that for another course that I hope I have the time to create one day. And I probably need to develop a little bit more wisdom before I do in that area. But that is in love. And so we will be covering a lot of inspection and intimacy tomorrow. So that's in a nutshell the obsession story. I'll just repeat it one more time. Impression, inspection, intimacy, and love. And we have an idea of, to be very crude, she opens her phone book, she opens her leg, she opens her heart. So that's what's going on. Now, the next layer of the dating game is what I call the investment ladder. It's how invested in you is she? How invested in the relationship is she? So there's about, I don't know how many, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 7 phases of investment that I'm going to walk you guys through in a moment. And this will really give you, you'll be like, okay, like she's doing this, great, I'm here. But before I give you that stuff, I want to talk a little theory. And if you haven't had your caffeine, now might be a good time, or suck on that e-cigarette or whatever. This just gets a little bit technical and a little heavy, but I'm going to try to keep it as fun as possible. So why do we invest in something? We invest in something that we value. So we value something, we invest in it. To date, I value iPhones, so I invest in it with my money. I value Facebook as a company to date, so I valued it a long time ago, so I invested in it. Right? So we invest in things that we value. Now, a good relationship with a woman is where there are equal levels of value and investment, where you value her and where she values you at equal levels. And we're investing each other equally. Now, Jason gave us some great ways to make her work for you and invest in you more. We all heard about how chasing and being challenging, creating that chase dynamic and being challenging is a great way to get a woman to invest in you. And being on your mission, being on your path, is a great way to get a woman to invest in you. There's a reason that we talk about this stuff so much, is because when we talked earlier, lead with vision and values. Why do you lead with vision and values? It's because you could have the nicest car in the world, you could take her on nice trips. If she doesn't buy into who you are as a human being, the values that drive you, the things that make you you, then it's not a real relationship. She just bought into the surface level of you. So you're going to get her to invest in you by leading with your vision and your values, who you really are. The second part of it is creating compelling emotional experiences for her. And that's, again, a lot of what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So there's the game, this whole dating game. The way I like to think about it is it's finding a girl who you value enough to invest in and being the value that she wants to invest in. I'm going to say that one more time. Finding the girl who you value enough to invest in and being the value that she wants to invest in. Because, let's face it, there's going to be a day when you're out on a date and the bill's going to come and she's going to look at you and you're going to look at her. There's going to be that moment of who's paying for this. If you asked her out, it's probably the right thing to do to cover the check. Some women are totally okay, taking care of themselves. But in that moment, you have to make a real monetary investment in her. And a lot of guys these days find this unfair. But it's just kind of how the dating game is. Economically, we've advanced in our society. Women have, I won't get too far off topic on this, but the middle class jobs that used to be held by men are largely being replaced by women. And women are, on average, earning the same or more. Not at the highest end, but on average, they're earning the same or more than men. Most men find this very unfair. And we live in this age where in the last 30 years, women's economic development has just exploded, but the rules of the dating game we're playing by are still rules that have existed for hundreds of years. Is it unfair? Maybe. Are those the rules? Yeah. And I've been doing this for 15 years. I know no way around it other than the fact to accept if you want to call it injustice, you can call it that, or if you just want to call it progress in society, that's how I like to think of it too, because I think it's great that women have made the progress that they've made. I think it just requires that we step up. We're in a transitionary phase right now. Maybe it won't always be like this, but this is the age that we live in. So it's like, seek truth. This is the truth of the moment. Deal with it as it is. So with that in mind, you're going to have to invest in a woman. So the first part is finding a woman who you value enough to invest in. You've heard a lot today about abundance, about being challenging, about being a great guy, about being on your mission. If you truly believe in your own value, then you are going to challenge women. You are going to screen women. You are going to wait until you find that woman who you value to really start investing in her. So we'll talk about how that plays out in a dating context in a little bit. And dating is really determining if there's a value fit. Do you guys really value each other? Not just physically, but in terms of the real values that the two of you have. Could you raise a family together? Could you spend time together? Do you like the same things? One more thing on value before we move on. And this is what I think one of the most important things I have to share with anyone is 3 forms of value that you can develop in yourself. So we talked about, earlier today, we talked about a whole bunch of traits, again, challenging, mysterious, so on and so forth. Those are a few good things that you can develop in yourself to become a session-worthy man. But to become what I would like to think of as a whole man, some of you will be familiar with the terms primary, passive, and active value, if you've read my material. So this is a big revelation to me years ago. When I was fucking up in my life again and again and again and again, I thought, I need a framework for developing myself, for becoming a better man. I need to figure out a way to stop fucking up. And I need to elevate myself on a number of levels. And I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it. This is the framework I came up with. And this, when you max out all these things, and it's not surprising, I built a program called the 10 Code that's all about maxing these things out in your life. When you max out these things, you become this incredible man of value who maybe he's not indifferent, but maybe he's not needy. He's on his mission. He's fucking awesome. And those 3 things are primary, passive, and active value. So primary value is the fire that burns inside of you. If you don't feel that on a daily basis, I would suggest that you are not living the best life you can live as a man. If you don't wake up every day and feel a fire burning inside of you to do something epic, do something important, do something meaningful to you. If you don't feel that, I would suggest that you are not living your best life as a man, and that is primary value, because everything else comes from primary value. The strength that I have when I speak, the love that I'm able to share, the energy I have to just live my life, it comes from that primary value. And when I was just living a kind of fucked up existence, I didn't feel any of that. So that is primary value. Everything flows from the fire inside of you. Passive value is the world you create. And a lot of getting a woman to approach you has to do with creating great passive value. The world you create. The example I always like to use of passive value is Jay-Z. If you go out to nightclubs, you've no doubt danced to a Jay-Z song, or Avicii. Let's say Avicii. He's really popular right now. Wake Me Up, incredible song. So you go out, you dance to Avicii. Now all of a sudden Avicii enters the venue. He's created value before he even met you, because you've danced to his songs and been happy and smiled to them and poured champagne on your friends, all to the tune of Avicii. So he created value before he even met you. That's a perfect example of passive value. Very few of us will be able to create that in the world, but not at least at that level. But we can create passive value in our own lives that women find very attractive. I'm going to tell you guys how to do that tomorrow. And then active value is how you make people feel when you're with them. It's the intensity of Nick's eye contact. It's the the strength of Jason's conviction. It's just the dance. So it's the mechanics for sure. You know, the things that we've been showing you how to do, the things we'll continue to show you tomorrow. But it's also the intention that you bring into it. We talked about eye contact. We talked about just what I'm thinking when I'm talking to a girl. You guys were telling me earlier, it's sort of those mental shifts that you have. So it's all of those things. So as a framework to think about for self-development, I think that those are three great areas to develop in your own life. Again, in the 10 Code, I have shared my framework for what I developed in my own life. And I'm pretty happy with who I am, so that's why I'm happy to share it. Other people might find other ways to develop it. But if you max out those things, your primary, your passive, your active value, and when I say max them out, I mean there's never a 10. You're always growing. You're always going to another level. But if you're working on maxing them out, women will invest in you. So let's talk about the investment ladder. This is where we bring it back to practical. So the investment ladder is what her levels of investment in you emotionally and with her time that she's going to feel as part of the dating process. And we can actually match these up to the obsession story. So the very first phase of investment is neutral. She doesn't know you. She doesn't care. She don't give a fuck. That's the first phase of investment. She's totally uninvested. The next phase of the investment ladder is intrigued. She's aware of you, and she's curious. So you can intrigue her by talking to her, but you can also intrigue her without talking to her. If you're able to create a lot of passive value, which I'll show you, again, we'll talk about all this stuff tomorrow, you can make her intensely intrigued without ever having met you. And that's a great way to enter a conversation. Next phase after intrigued is engaged. So she's thinking about you, and she's spending time with you. It's like, okay, she's engaged with me, cool. Next level is compliant. She does little things for you when you ask her. You know, a simple example would be like, oh, hey, I'm about to use the restroom. Would you mind watching my drink? A lot of guys fuck this up. That was a classic like pickup artist technique, is try to get a girl to watch a drink while they go to the bathroom. And they would do it before they actually were in that phase to try to get the girl to be in that phase because they weren't able to read it. But compliant is she does little things for you when you ask. The next phase is invested. And by the way, just to add some more clarity to that, compliant, another one is she goes out on a date with you when you ask. She responds when you text. So that's like compliant. The next phase is invested. Usually this will be one date, maybe 2 dates in. She wants to see if a successful relationship is possible with you. She's invested in the idea of the future with you. Phase after that is chasing. So she's actively going out of her way for you, and she's actively thoughtful. And the final phase of investment is committed. She's chosen you to the exception of all the other options out there. I know that's some heavy conceptual stuff. I'll run through them again real quickly. Neutral, she doesn't know shit about you. Intrigued, she's aware, she's curious about you. Engaged, she's thinking about you, spending a little bit of time with you. Compliant, she's doing little things when you ask her to do little things. Invested, she wants to see if a successful relationship is possible. She's like kind of in it right now. She's like, okay, I'm in it. Chasing, she goes out of her way to do things for you. And committed, she's chosen you to the exception of other options. So that's the investment ladder. Now, chances are that makes sense intuitively. You guys are like, okay, yeah, I've gotten to that phase before with a girl. Like I got there, I got here. Like I get it. The thing is, like, you can get stuck in these phases of the investment ladder. Like, I can't get her from engaged to, or from compliant to invested. Like, she'll respond to my texts, but she doesn't actually want to go out with me. How many guys does that have? Like, everybody in this room. Yeah, she'll respond to my text, she doesn't want to go out with me. So you can get stuck in these phases. And the thing that I just want to point out to you is it could be because of you and your own issues. Very much a possibility. It could also be that she's just fucking crazy. And you don't want to rule that one out. You really don't. And I'm not going to dwell on it for too long, but I want to dwell on it for long enough to just make sure that you guys remember there might be a day when you're dating some girl and you're texting her and she's you're not getting the responses you want, you kind of like this girl, I just want you to remember, it might be her. She might be fucking crazy. And this has happened more often than, like, this happens so often. And I look back on my years of dating, and all these times when I was like, okay, I need this technique, I need to do this thing, it's my fault if she doesn't respond to me. Like, I'm like texting her, I'm calling her, I'm like, we see each other out. Like, there's one girl, god damn, like, I really liked her, and I invited her over. I called her up one day because I had this terrible cough, and my doctor had prescribed me some codeine because my throat was just killing me. And I texted her up one day, and she'd been like really like just difficult. I texted her, I'm like, hey, like, I've got some marijuana, I've got some codeine, why don't you come over and we'll be Kurt and Courtney? You know, Cobain, right? They were into the whole drug thing. And she's like, yeah, sounds amazing. I'll be by a little later. I'm like, oh, great. Like, I'm going to see her. Like, her schedule freed up. What happened? She came over, she smoked some weed, she drank some codeine, she passed out on my bed. I'm like, I thought we were moving in the right direction here. The girl ended up getting a bunch of cats. And, like, now she's a cat lady. So, like, point is, I was putting so much pressure on myself to do the right thing, and to, like, just because I don't know, she was hot, and I was dating a few girls at the time, but I kind of thought she was hotter than the other ones. I was putting so much pressure on myself to do the right thing, and just turned out that her head wasn't screwed on straight. So I just want to remind you guys, and anybody at home, like, you'll go through these phases, you might get stuck, you might not get past the phase of investment. It could be because the girl is crazy. She might not be ready to invest in you. She just might not feel comfortable opening herself up, and that might be a relationship pattern in her life. Those girls, coincidentally, are often heartbreakers. I was out to lunch with my buddy John the other day, and I know this girl who I never really had anything with. We've always been friends, but she dated one of my other buddies. She dated John, and we were just talking about her relationship patterns. And I was like, yeah, I bet she did this, and I bet she did that, and I bet she did that. He's like, yep, she did that, she did that, she did that, and it drove me up the fucking wall. Crazy. You know, like, maybe she'll give herself to a man one day, but, like, John, if there's a man who a woman should give herself to, it's this guy. Just amazing dude. And, like, she was just kind of nuts with him. So I will close my thoughts on this with, some girls are just fucking crazy, and just realize that. So that's enough of that. When is investment locked in? So we go through this ladder: neutral, engaged, compliant, so on and so forth. In the course itself, there will be a slide, and all the stuff will overlay on each other, and it'll be very clear to you guys. But when is a girl invested? When is investment locked in, so to speak? Well, there's two answers to this. The first answer is 8 months. Second answer is never. So 8 months is about the amount of time that if you're dating a girl and, like, it's going well, it's going to keep going well for that period of time. What I find is relationships usually go in, like, these phases. There's, like, 3-month relationships, 6-month relationships, 2-year relationships, and then, like, forever or a long freaking time relationships. So if you get past the 8-month mark, that means that, like, you've gotten past that phase where, like up to 6 months, you're probably just having sex every day, all the time, and it's amazing, and, like, then your body chemistry starts to change. This is actual science. If you spend enough time in the same room, in the same relationship with a girl, your body chemistry changes, your hormones change. And the excessive assertive and aggressive hormones that you produce start to fade away, and you start to produce more, like, nurturing, like, dad hormones. I can't remember what they're called. This is it's a book called The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. So 8 months, your hormones are starting to change, the relationship's starting to take on a slightly different flavor. If you make it past that 6-month point, and you're still happy with her and you guys haven't broken up, probably pretty good. That's when it's sort of locked in. Now, on the other hand, I said never. Has anybody in here read 50 Cent's The 50th Law? A few of you, yeah. Amazing book, right? One of the things that struck me when I was reading that book, I'd read that right around the same time I read The 4-Hour Workweek. And I love The 4-Hour Workweek, but I also hate it, because in The 4-Hour Workweek, he paints this picture of this amazing life you live when you just do enough work and then you kind of leave it all behind and you work for 4 hours. And I know it's more than that, but, you know, that's That's what a lot of people take away. And I was thinking to myself at the time, like, I just want to not do work. I just want to like enjoy my life. Just want to kick back, travel the world, and just, kind of take it easy. I want to take it easy. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. I want to take it easy. And what I also read at the time was 50 Cent's The 50th Law, and it occurred to me that 50 never takes it easy. Every fucking day, he's grinding. And he might enjoy himself, he might take a short vacation, but he never takes it easy. And we've talked a lot about masculinity today. I think one of the hallmarks of a man is he never takes it easy, never kicks back his feet. He's always ready. You can take a vacation, you can take a break, you can take an extended break if you want, but your work on this earth is never done. There's always someone else's life to change, there's always someone else to help, there's always a woman to make happy, there's always a child to help raise. Your work is never done. And so when you think about when is investment truly locked in, it's never really locked in. If you take your wife for granted, what does the ring even mean? So just a little reminder about our role as men, the work that we always have to be doing. So that's investment, right? And the final thing that we have with that we have in this whole matrix is checkpoints, dating checkpoints. This is just going to be head-slappingly obvious. You meet a girl, you get her number, first date, first kiss, second date, third date, maybe sex on that date, more sex, and then like the checkpoints get a little bit off, but my checkpoints, or the way I like to think about them, is after the third date and after you guys have sex, there's a phase of more sex, and there's usually a point where you guys spend Sunday together. The Sunday together is a big checkpoint. And then the next checkpoint after that is meeting each other's friends, and the next checkpoint after that is boyfriend, girlfriend. So putting it all together, I'll just kind of hold this up because I don't have handouts. You can see that there's this beautiful matrix here of impression, inspection, intimacy, and love, and then the nice investment ladder, and then all the stuff that's going down during that process. I'll be sharing this with you guys when we have access to a printer, and it will also be online for those watching it at home. But you're just going to have to take my word that it meshes together beautifully. So that's that. It kind of brings to a close what we have to talk about today. What I gave you is just very high-level stuff. We talked about being an obsession-worthy man and the 6 traits of men who women obsess over. We talked about being boyfriend material, 7 things that women deeply desire out of their relationships and out of their men. And I gave you a 30,000-foot view of the dating game on multiple levels. And if you had that chart in front of you, like, oh yeah, that's how it all works together. So tomorrow, we're going to jump into the dating game itself. I'm going to start with impression. You got some really good stuff. How to make a great impression on a girl. I wish I could get into it right now. I wish I could keep rolling. I'm just looking at the slides right now. But yeah, we're going to have a great day tomorrow. It's going to be full of specifics, full of really detailed stuff, like here's what to do, here's what to say. But yeah, I guess you guys just have to wait for it till tomorrow. So that is the day. Any questions before I close this segment? I know that was sort of some heavy concepts there. Any thoughts or questions? Anything unclear? 30,000 foot. Sorry, that's one of these stupid business expressions. Like, the 30,000 foot view? Right. Oh, yeah, okay, as I explained all that to you, do you kind of see how, like, from a high level, impression, inspection, intimacy, and love? From a high level, the dating checkpoints, yeah. That's really all it was. So, Reggie?
What if you don't plan on having sex with the girl?
I'm sorry?
What if you do not plan on having sex with the girl?
Okay, sure. Why would you not want to have sex with the girl?
Wait till marriage.
Ah, right, that thing. Great. Is that your situation?
Yes.
Great. Okay. More respect to you. You probably did not totally resonate with everything Jason said. If you want to wait till marriage to have sex with a girl, that's just fine. A lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about yet tomorrow, like, you might wait till marriage to have sex, but maybe you will do sexual-ish things. Maybe you'll like, kiss each other a lot, or, like make love in a way that doesn't involve actual intercourse. And, we can talk about that tomorrow. When I say sex, I mean, that's kind of, it's the society we live in, that's kind of, how it goes, right? But if that's your values, you can do everything that we're going to be doing without having sex. I think it's more fun when you have sex, but you can do everything we're going to do without having sex. The concepts still remain. The investments still remain. For a woman who has the same values as you do, she's going to go through the same thing and feel the same thing without the sex having to be there, as long as her values are the same. Now, if you're dating a girl who's like, oh, yeah, I love having sex, then that might be a little bit different. But yeah, but I'll make sure to talk about that tomorrow. Any other questions? Anything I didn't cover today that you guys want to discuss? Anything that came up? All right, guys, we're going to go have fun tonight, and we will reconvene tomorrow.